So we live together.
Yep.
We watch football together.
Yep.
We talk about football together.
Yep.
Why don't we just start a podcast?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Eye Test. It's myself, Lyés, and my boy, CultureCams. And today, obviously, we're smack in the middle of the transfer window. And to be honest, side conversation, it's been kind of quiet, I feel, bro. Like,
Very.
There ain't really been like these crazy rumors. I feel like it might actually be correcting itself, which for me is a massive relief because sometimes it really just be taking over the entire season. But we also wanted to do a special episode kind of surrounding the transfer window where me and Cam participate in a draft where we each select, in our opinion, what are the most influential signings in Premier League history. So it could, well, influential, like what does that mean, right? Like, how does it impact the team's immediate results? Like, what did they do that season when they were signed? But also, like, in the grand scheme of things, how impactful was that signing for, like, not just the next few years for the club, but even for the league, if that's the case.
I think it's important that, you know, when in our reasons, we'll give context to it. Because there's difference in each. There's some that might be simply what they done on the pitch, some off the pitch, or the significance. There might even be some niche reason that you might not think about, or I might not think about, and the context is what matters behind it, and it opens your mind up a little bit more. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. This is good. This is fun.
It's gonna be a good one, man. As always, of course, like, share, subscribe, check out BR Football, who are always powering this podcast. But let's get into it. How do we want to do this, by the way?
I think we should do a rock, paper, scissors.
You see the thing of rock, paper, scissors, right? You guys be doing that shit different to us.
No, but you be saying shoot. Don't do it at shoot.
Hold on. What do you
it at rock, paper, then you do your action.
No, that's
not rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
No, but you gotta like state all three of them and
no,
then announce that you're...
No, you don't.
Yes,
this is the
bro.
cultural difference here, bro. No. Rock, paper.
That's dead, bro.
It's basically 1, 2, 3.
So when you lived in the US for a little bit, you were doing this bullshit.
I wasn't playing no rock, paper, scissors, shoot. I was in the playground on the mud slides and actually getting active.
Doing that real man shit.
Yeah,
8 years old.
I was by the bars and swinging around and that. But now, okay, all right. How are we gonna do it then?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
But what? The shoot slows it down.
Oh, it slows it down for what?
Look. If you do rock, paper, scissors,
and then we both know to go and shoot.
Oh my days!
All right.
Trust me, your UK audience, they don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, my US audience is for y'all,
man.
They
ain't here, man. What's the percentage on the demographic?
It would be 50-50.
All right. So is it
best,
shoot?
Yeah, are we doing best 2 out of 3?
Best out of 3, yeah.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, 1-0. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Whoa!
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Let's go. All right. With the first pick in the transfer draft. Team Lyés selects, and this is tough, bro. I can't lie.
It's a lot.
The first one I'm gonna go for. I'm gonna go right next door. Next door.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to Manchester City, and I'm going to say Carlos Tevez to Manchester City. Now, with City, there was a lot of choices I could have gone for. Could have gone for Aguero, which for me, he's their greatest ever figure. Scored the winning goal to win them the league. Record goal scorer, all the big games that he kind of just destroyed throughout Premier League history. I could have gone with him. Could have gone with David Silva, Yaya Toure, Erling Haaland, what he did in his first year, De Bruyne. There's so many options since they kind of got bought out in 2008. But I went for Carlos Tevez. And again, this is where the word impact and influence kind of bears fruit here, right? Because he was not as great a legend as an Aguero, for example, or what De Bruyne has done. But what his signing meant in terms of the power dynamic in Manchester, and then eventually like where the league would kind of go forwards in the next few years, I feel was absolutely massive. Now, Carlos Tevez was such a weird one, right? Because a lot of people may not know this, like newer fans, but Carlos Tevez was never owned by Man United. And I think that's kind of like a misconception that some newer fans have. He was at this point owned by like an agency. And that agency was kind of just like sharing him to different clubs. They sent him out to West Ham for a year, basically saved them. And then he came back to the agency and like they almost like trialed him at all these different places. Like, oh, have Carlos Tevez for a year or two, and then at the end you can decide to buy him. And he was at Man United. And obviously we know in that 07-08 season, he formed for me what is still the greatest front three I think the Premier League has seen between Ronaldo, Rooney, and himself. They won the Champions League. They won the Premier League. They were literally disgusting. But that next season, another misconception is that front three lasted years. It really only lasted 1 year, in my opinion, because the next year, the club bought Dimitar Berbatov. Sir Alex maybe faced some pressure from above to kind of play him because it was the record signing. And Tevez was kind of the guy that felt the signing the most, because you were never going to drop Ronaldo. He was the best player in the world. Rooney was maybe the perfect embodiment of like what Man United fans wanted to see on the pitch. His selfless off the ball work, he had to be there as well too. And Tevez was maybe the easiest guy to replace out of the three in terms of name, in terms of importance, even though he played it. Yeah, unfortunately, but he played a huge part, but he was the guy that was probably sacrificed the most. And his playing time was like massively cut that second season. And there was always this noise around him and Sir Alex. Was he going to be signed full-time at the end of the year? Was he even in Sir Alex's plans? Where else could he go? And towards the end of the season, a lot of people actually thought, okay, they're going to end up signing him. Like, in fact, Sir Alex even said, yeah, I'm pretty confident we're going to bring him back next year. Until the next year, where he returned to his agency, United decided not to take the £25 million option to buy him, which...
Don't forget what Fergie said, though. Fergie said he's never worth 25 million.
Which, we're looking back on it now, right? First of all, United decided to spend 25 million on Valencia that summer instead. But also looking onto how Tevez's career would go and also where United would go from that point on, it's, for me, one of the biggest blunders Sir Alex and United has ever made. And therefore, Carlos Tevez became available to everybody for £25 million. And there was rumors to Juventus, there were rumors going to Italy, to Germany. And instead, Manchester City, the new kids on the block, who were looking to make a splash with this newfound money, decided to bring Carlos Tevez in. And like I said, Tevez spent a few years there. He was the captain in the second year. In fact, he even ended up like leaving the country, go play golf in Argentina. He came back dramatic, ended up going to Juve. His stint there wasn't that long. But in terms of the impact, that was the moment, in my opinion, that Man City announced themselves to the Premier League that, look, Sir Alex called us the noisy neighbors. But we are here to stay, man. Like we're building property here. You look at the sign, welcome to Manchester. That for me was the first major power imbalance in Manchester that announced City as one of the biggest clubs in the country. And Tevez for me was the focal point. You had guys like Adebayor, you had guys like Gareth Barry, Rocky Santa Cruz, eventually the big guys who came after him. But City managing to get a guy that was so influential for United in the past few seasons, bring him to him, and he almost embraced that villain role, right? Every single time he would play against United and score, he'd do the ears up against Fergie, he'd do the dance, he'd be fighting with Raphael. He basically made his presence known every single Manchester derby. Yeah, of course, bro. Because he took that shit personally, bro. I'm sure he would have loved to stay at United. But the fact that they literally looked at him and said, oh no, we got other priorities. Like, you can go. We don't really care. He took that personally. And for me, those were he was the main catalyst for how heated a Manchester derby became. Because I think for Mancunians, obviously they don't like City don't like United. But it became full-on hate between the two clubs. And I think he was the focal point of that.
No, I think that's that was on my list. It was on one of my short lists. That's definitely a good one. He's got to also remember as well that with that as well, really and truly, it came down to the agency. It came down to Kia Jarapchin, right? Ferguson absolutely hated Kia Jarapchin. It was a new type of mod. Like, we started seeing it now, not to the same extent, but you get Jorge Mendes, you've got Mino Raiola, who again Fergie had issues with. Back in the day, agents' work used to be pretty simple, and a lot of time they'll take brown envelopes. The player will come. It is what it is. But Kia Jarapchin was very, very strict with how he ran his players, and some people will say it's a little bit dodgy. But Ferguson never ever saw.
It was a different era. It was a different era.
Ferguson, I think his ego got in the way a little bit there. His pride,
definitely.
You can argue. I mean, he had the same issue. I know that people are going to think this is way back, but I was even there these times. But he had the same issue with Andrei Kanchelskis, right? So when he left Manchester United, it was all over agency. Where he used to have some agent who was like some Russian, like potentially like Russian mafia, like involved in that. And Ferguson had issues with him and shipped him off, I believe, to Everton. Madness. Anyway, so Ferguson and agents was always that, and that led to the downfall with Tevez.
Like I said, different era, and at United, in his eyes, and that's the way it was. No one was bigger than Sir Alex. No one is bigger than the club, and that it was almost like a direct. Yo, we're gonna put you guys basically like on put a gun to your head, pay the 25 million, or we're going somewhere else. He said, "I bet." Peace.
Yeah. All right. Cool. That's
my number one, Carlos Tevez.
All right, that's fair. All right, I've got I think it's a fairly obvious one. I thought you were gonna go here with number one. I thought you were gonna go there, but obviously I know you're not ranking it. But I thought you were gonna go here. I'm gonna stay in Manchester as well, so I'm gonna have to go with Eric Cantona.
Oh, he was on my short. He was high in my short list as well
Eric
too.
Cantona. I mean, if you're talking about a transformation of a football club, if you're talking about somebody that represented a football club to the T, if you're talking about a player that was basically the manager on the pitch, you can look no further than Eric Cantona. I mean, he won the league the season before, which was the first division, the final ever first division with Leeds. After having, in typical Cantona style, maverick kind of career. You know what I mean? How he's just even end up at Leeds. It was very random how he did. He retired at some point. At 26 years old, he retired for 6 months or whatever it was. Guy's crazy.
He's the biggest maverick the sport has seen.
Literally, he ended up finding his way to Leeds and did really well. And that was a signing where Ferguson looked at it just to his quality and said, I need him at Manchester United to open up Manchester United in the Premier League, where we have gone on to see what the Premier League has become. Without Eric Cantona being that figurehead for Man United, first to transform us into champions, and Man United going on to be the most reputable brand this country's ever seen, who would have, you'll never know how it could have become if Cantona never got there. If Cantona never got there and put Manchester United on his back and lifted these guys, who knows what Manchester United would have went on to be. And Man United being the team when the money came into the league, when the eyes started coming because of the Premier League, because of Sky's impact into English football, like the landscape of United and the Premier League could be totally different. If the Premier League was Leeds's, who knows what this league would look like? You never know. You know what I mean? Who knows how we'll be talking about Sir Alex Ferguson?
It's true.
Because you got to remember, we had only won one FA Cup. Manchester United only won one FA Cup at that point under Sir Alex. It had been a 26-year drought in terms of winning a title, 26, 27 years. And Eric Cantona, this Frenchman, walks through with his collar up and says, looks around and says, this is going to be my playground. Do you know what I mean? And he absolutely dominated. And you look at what Man United went on to do those following years, the dominance, who they become, the money in that Man United in terms of global brand, it all got to start from somewhere. Yes, you're going to attribute it to Sir Alex as well, but on the pitch, it was Eric Cantona.
He was Sir Alex's guy on the pitch for sure.
He was Sir Alex's guy. He was, if you listen to how the class of 92 speak as well, the most famous academy products we've ever seen in this country, go and ask them who was leading them. Go and ask them who was showing them the ropes, who they wanted to impress when they got on the pitch. It was Eric Cantona. All of them saw Eric Cantona. He was the figurehead of the club. And honestly, obviously, he had the fly kick moment, the kung fu, but
that adds to the myth.
It adds to the return to come back and score in the FA Cup final against Liverpool. The fiercest rivals. I just think Eric Cantona is arguably the most impactful signing in Premier League history, let alone, there's going to be so much talk, you know, we're going to have different reasons. But if we're just talking about impact and what that club went on to do and what that player went on to do, I don't think you can get better than Eric Cantona personally. I think he is the most impactful signing of all time in the Premier League. You
know, it's so... How often do you see a player arrive to a club and it just seems like a match made in heaven? Like, honestly, like, Cantona and United just seemed so right. Like, and I know like United weren't in their greatest period when he came, but like you think of the theater of dreams, you think of the allure, it just seemed like it suited Eric Cantona so much. And the only one really that I mean, there's a few, right? But like one that I think of when I think of similar is like when Cristiano got to Real Madrid, and it just seemed like the biggest superstar at like the superstar club. It's a match made in heaven. But Cantona in terms of English football, it just seemed like the two were destined to be together.
Don't sleep on the fact that he was a foreign player and look at the foreign influx that followed. Oh yeah. You look at the legends of English football before Eric Cantona, there'll be Scottish, Welsh, Irish, or English.
Keegan, George Best, 100%.
All of them, Sir Bobby, Brian Robson, all of the names that you can think of, they were Welsh, Scottish, Irish, or English. And Eric Cantona walks through, and then you get Thierry Henry's, and then you get Bergkamps, and then you get whoever, Salah, whoever you want to mention, Zola, then you Ronaldo, Zola, you know what I mean? Then you get all these guys, but it started at Eric Cantona. I think he was the first foreign legend in this league. And
I think that the point on the class of 92 as well too is such a key point, right? I mean, like everyone remembers, or like we've heard of the quote, you won't win anything with kids, basically. And there is some truth to the matter, right? Like relying entirely on like young kids with little to no experience to just kind of like learn the ropes and stuff like that without anybody kind of guiding them and holding their hand and like being the senior statesman for them. it's suicide. We've seen United in the last few years. They've had young, talented players, but if you don't have the guys above them, like the guys who have been there, and you look as well too, the class of 92 lasted a long time. Gary Neville was eventually the mentor for other guys, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, but everybody needs that guy at the start to kind of lead the way, and Eric Cantona was, without a doubt, the perfect kind of reference point for these young kids to look up to and say, okay, that's the standard. That's the level that we have to reach every single day. So I think it's a great pick. Eric Cantona. What a
Eric Cantona and Carlos Tevez.
King
They're two great picks for different reasons as well. For very different reasons, but they both felt like catalysts.
100%. Catalyst is the big one. Yeah. The next one I'm going to go for. You went for a big hitter. You know, I was going for the more obscure ones. Okay, we're going big hitters now. I'm going for Thierry Henry. Va-va-voom.
Okay.
When I think, right, of like who is kind of like the poster boy for the Premier League.
Yes.
Well, for me, no doubt about it, the greatest player in Premier League history, in my opinion, is Thierry Henry. But also like what he meant for the league in an era where the Premier League was rapidly kind of like heading towards a superstardom league. Yeah. For me, Henry, if he wasn't like the figurehead or like the poster boy of like when the Prem was at his best, he was there right when the Prem was kind of entering that era, the mid to late 2000s, where like everything was about the big four in the Premier League and English football. And you saw in the Champions League how dominant they were. And I think a lot of that has to do with how brilliant Henry was in the Premier League. One thing that I think often kind of gets like forgotten about is that when you look at the best players in the world at any point, very rarely does the best player in the world reside in the Premier League. For the most part, Cristiano, Messi, Benzema, Modric, Ronaldinho, R9, Zizou, if they weren't in Spain, they go to Spain.
Yeah.
But I think Henry was really the guy that, like, even if you didn't consider him the best, right? You had Ronaldinho at that point, you had Zidane towards the end. Henry was a guy that the Premier League could realistically pit up against everybody else in the world and say, yeah, that's your candidate for best player in the world. This is our candidate right here. Oftentimes in the Premier League, you don't really have that. Again, like I said, they all go to Spain one way or another. But for 4, 5, 6 years, Arsenal and the Premier League had that guy. And I think he was everything that the Premier League needed at that point. Obviously, he was like brilliant, but he was like audaciously brilliant. It wasn't just like a guy that just scored crazy goals. It's the fashion, the manner in which he did it, that everybody wanted to tune into Thierry Henry no matter what. So in that sense, his impact is crazy. But also, like, you look at what he meant for Arsenal and how, like, every single French player or French-speaking player today or of the last 10 years looks at Arsenal and is like, yeah, if I had to support a team in the Premier League, it's Arsenal. And I get they had Wenger. I get they had Vieira. I get they had Pires. But it was Henry. I think it was Henry that made Arsenal such a massive allure to, like, the French-speaking side of the world. Even I know a lot of African football fans, too. They look at Chelsea and they look at United. But I think as well, too, looking at Arsenal, the influence that he had in making them, like, a global statesman of the game, growing that brand out as much as he did. And I think, again, the manner in which he did it, which for me is so important. There's some people who do it well, but doing it well that everybody wants to see what you're doing, I think is so underspoken. Yeah. For me, that's why Henry has to be in this list.
Nah, that's a 30 one. Obviously, that's a great one because one, you're arguably talking about the best player, that's played. But I know you were talking about the French, even black people. What he did for black people, black Londoners, whatever. Black people to support Arsenal. There was Ian Wright before him. Yeah. He started bringing in one generation. But Henry, he took it to another level. Everyone, I say it time and time again. I've said it about Ronaldinho. Said it about Sir. Everyone wanted to be Thierry Henry. Yeah. Like, I don't care who you support. Yeah. I don't care where you're from. If you are from, like, my community, a black community, you wanted to be Thierry Henry. It's as simple as that. You wanted to put on the gloves. You wanted to wear long sleeves. Yeah. You pulled up your socks to your knees. You wanted the Mercurials. Yeah. You wore a vest underneath your top.
When you scored, you played it cool.
When you scored, you didn't celebrate. You know, you wanted to be Henry. Yeah. When he scored the free kick and said, "Is that enough?" Everyone went and tried to do that. When he scored the back heel versus Charlton, that sent shockwaves around. Everyone wanted to score back kick. All of a sudden, everyone's playing back to goal. When did you used to do that? Everyone's trying to play back to goal.
That goal he scored against United.
The goal he scored. Everyone wanted to be Thierry. He's the coolest player we've seen in this league. Like,
that's what I'm saying. It's not
like he just brought something different. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's been great players in this league, but like the swagger is the perfect word, man. It's like he made it so cool.
It's so cool, bro. Like honestly, everything about him was just cool, man. And you know, I always say like in America they had Kobe. You know what I mean? That's who a lot of people. We had Thierry, man. You know, we had Thierry. They had Kobe.
And I'm telling you, like this is for me. Like England had a candidate.
Yeah.
Like. You know, like how they always say, like, oh, if you were to play, like, the aliens come to Earth, give us your strongest five or whatever. In that era, you're sending Dino, you're sending Zidane, you're sending R9, you're sending, I don't know, like Del Piero or someone. But you're sending Henry as well, too. And that's the Prem's answer to best players in the world. I think it's so important.
That's a good one. And remember, people, just before I go on to my one, we can only use one player from each team. So
I should have definitely mentioned that.
We can use one player from each team. So he's used his City and Arsenal pick. So I'm gonna move on because now I know I got Arsenal one in the bank. I got Arsenal one in the bank.
I got United in the bank.
You got United in the bank. I mean, I've got Arsenal in the bank already, so I don't need to use it right now. I can consider my options. I'm gonna go for one that I think is gonna surprise you.
Ooh.
I'm going to go, and coincidentally, it's his birthday today. No, coincidentally, he signed for Newcastle today for 15 million.
Get your facts right, please. This has to affect points, by the way, right?
I'm going to go with Alan Shearer to Blackburn.
Okay.
To Blackburn.
Wait, is that you keeping your Newcastle figures?
Alan Shearer, no. Alan Shearer to Blackburn. That is something that isn't spoken about. Now, first and foremost, this guy went on to be the greatest goal scorer in Premier League history statistically. 260 goals. Are we ever going to see that broken? We have to see. First and foremost, it was obviously, he joined Blackburn in 92-93, which is the first season in the Premier League, right? The first Premier League season of all time. The season before that, he was at Southampton. But Blackburn were in the second division. They weren't in the first division, they're in the second division, and won promotion by finishing like 6th in the second division.
Wow.
They signed Alan Shearer, right? Brought him into the club.
Well, like their first season from being promoted.
First season getting promoted to the Premier League. They brought in Alan Shearer. That season, he scored 16 goals in 21 games, yeah? And they finished 4th.
Wow.
The season after, he scored 31 goals in 40 games and they finished 2nd. The season after, he scored 34 goals in 42 games and they won the Premier League. Alan Shearer is one of the most underrated and underspoken about legends of all time. This guy, if it wasn't for the fact that he decided to basically reject United, rip up a contract for Man United, we'll be talking about arguably the best player to ever play in the Premier League. If you look at his goal catalogue, ridiculous. Peter Crouch has just narrowly surpassed him with most headed goals. His first, I want everyone to go and look at his goal score and his videos. You haven't seen a player that can score first time like Shearer. If the ball comes in the box, he's volleying that. No matter where it is, he's volleying that. Headers, first contact, coming across his body, striking it. The way everyone's talking about Harry Kane, you speak about him with a little bit more juice and a Premier League title, by the way.
Ooh.
And the Premier League title. So the way everyone's talking about it, he was a gunman for England too. He had great campaigns. Even when he got to the Champions League with Newcastle, he scored a hat-trick in the Champions League with Newcastle. The guy was the definition of an old school gun man. And if you're talking about impact, he joined a team that finished 6th in the second division, and within 3 seasons, they became Premier League champions against that juggernaut team of Manchester United. I think that is, if you're talking about impact, you can't look much further. And I just want to say his full numbers for Blackburn. Alan Shearer for Blackburn scored, let me get this up right now to be sure. Alan Shearer in 171 games for Blackburn scored 130 goals.
That's messed up. That's actually messed up.
Don't play around with him. The guy had 2 massive knee injuries. If he didn't have them, he'll be in the 300 goal club in the Premier League. Mind how you speak on Alan Shearer. If he's not in your top 5 all-time Premier League strikers, I don't know what you're doing.
Strikers, I think you got to talk about players, bro. About strikers. Strikers, he should probably be leading the list.
And I wish, it's unfortunate I didn't get to see this period of Alan Shearer. I got to see the last 3-4 years of his career. But we're talking about impact. And with impact, you have to do your research. you have to look. You have to see the landscape of the league when players joined. And Alan Shearer, I think, if you're talking about where Blackburn since, where Blackburn,
obscurity. Blackburn
have a Premier League title. Yeah. Blackburn, come on, man, and that's down to Alan Shearer. Of course, shout out Chris Sutton as well. But it's all for me. Shearer is the one, and I think it's hard to look past that type of signing.
That's a crazy impact. In fact, I didn't even know like the magnitude of like how quickly he turned Blackburn from like newly promoted to Premier League champions. And like you said, of course, there was help along the way. But wow,
I did have a takeover as well. They did spend
true,
money,
of course, but
you got to do it.
He is the takeover.
Yes,
he is the takeover.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think underspoken and like how like disrespected, to be honest with you, he actually is. Like I remember a few months ago on the timeline, this conversation of players who wouldn't be able to like hack the modern game like they did when they were at their best, and he was one of the names kind of brought up. First of all, I think is just a massively uneducated take. Like you clearly are not. For me, even me, I did not know like that's how crazy he came to Blackburn and flicked the switch for them. But guys, this is a player that sat on the same Ballon d'Or stage as George Weah and Ronaldo Nazario. He shared a stage with two of the greatest strikers in the history of this sport. And we don't hit George Weah with claims that he wouldn't be able to hack it in today's game. No. We certainly don't throw those claims at R9. No. We know better. But Alan Shearer is the one that gets hit with the you wouldn't be able to do it today.
I think people seem to think he's some like podgy, can't move. Alan Shearer,
they talk about him like he's like Kevin Nolan, bro.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally Kevin Davies.
Kevin Davies. For both of them.
Yeah, Alan Shearer could move, bro. Like if you look at his videos, he can move. He wasn't only just scoring, like he was scoring off the last man. He was running off the last man. He was athletic. He was big. He's strong. Aerial ability, hold up the ball. And if you want to score worldie, he had that. He had volleys, he had long shots, he had free kicks. Bro, go and check the goal he scored against Manchester United. I believe it was at Old Trafford. His free kick. Mate, he almost ripped the net. Bro, he almost, it looked like Roberto Carlos type shit. He almost ripped the net. The guy was a all-time great.
I'll tell you what it is, right? It's the fact he's English.
Yep.
It's the fact he played 20 years ago.
His name's Alan Shearer.
I was gonna say, and it's the fact that it's the fact that he's not like an extremely flashy player in any sense, right?
Yeah.
He's not outspoken these days anymore, talking about how brilliant he is, even though he should more. Like, there's obviously that famous interaction between him and Micah Richards, where Micah Richards is like, Alan Shearer has by far the very worst celebration I've ever seen. He's like, well, it's because you had to see it 260 fucking times. Every time he scores, he does that celebration, but. Hey, man, you get it done. Got to get it how you live, bro.
Get it done, man. So that's my one. Number 2.
I think that's a brilliant pick, man. Ooh, we're talking about some big hitters, man. I'm going to kind of go back down, though, to a more obscure one, or one that doesn't, like, come to mind as much as many others. I'm going to go, and this is on impact, because I think his impact, you could put him down twice on this list, to be honest with you. But I'm going to look at one in particular. And that's N'Golo Kante to Leicester City. And like I said,
I didn't put him on my shortlist for a reason, but I'll tell you why.
Okay, yeah, but like, because you probably think of the Chelsea one, right? I was gonna say he could be on this list for Chelsea in terms of what he accomplished for them, and for Leicester. And obviously Leicester was 1 year, a 1 year wonder. But man, what a year it was. Leicester, right, getting promoted in 2013-14. And I think a lot of people forget that first year, everyone talks about the Leicester title win, and rightfully so. It's for me the biggest sporting miracle I've ever seen. If you want to throw your mighty ducks over or whatever. From what I've seen, I don't think I'll ever see anything as incredible as that, as unforeseen as that. But what they did the year before, the Great Escape, it's arguably the greatest escape we've ever seen from Premier League relegation. And it's completely swept under the rug because of what they did the next year. But that 15-16 season, Claudio Ranieri comes in. Everybody immediately writes them off. Why the hell would they sack Nigel Pearson? They have a squad of relative unknowns. Riyad Mahrez was on the bench basically the entirety of last season. Jamie Vardy is like your typical kick and run striker. You have a band of misfits. But in the shadows, Steve Walsh is basically constructing this band of misfits that are ultimately going to shock the world. And for me, obviously Mahrez went for 500,000, but we can't include that because it was a championship signing. And Vardy quite similar as well too. But he signs this guy from France, right? N'Golo Kante, and no one has really heard of him before. And when he comes in, he's even more unassuming. He doesn't say a word, shy guy. In fact, at the beginning, they don't even know where to play him. The first game, Claudio Ranieri plays him on outside, like basically a right midfielder. And within like one training session, basically, the players go to him and say, nah, this guy has to be in the center of the park. And obviously, we know Leicester go on this crazy run, the run of dreams. They snatch everybody's hearts. Anybody who's not an Arsenal and Spurs fan is basically looking at Leicester and saying, go and do it. We want to see you guys do it. And Mahrez takes the headlines. He wins PFA Player of the Year, the flicks, the tricks, the goals. Vardy breaks Premier League history, a Premier League record. It's 11. It's heaven for Jamie Vardy. He takes the records. But the guy who, for me, his entire career basically sums up this, just does the unseen dirty work in the center of the park, is N'Golo Kante. Every single hole that the team has, he's there to plug it. Every single blade of grass that needs to be covered for a guy like Mahrez to do his thing, he does it. Doesn't score the entirety of the season. In fact, if you were really only like watching box scores back then, Sofa score, you wouldn't even see his impact on the pitch.
To be fair, his Sofa scores were probably going crazy.
Probably.
Ball recoveries and duels
but yeah,
he was winning.
he is the heart and soul of that Leicester City team. And look, they couldn't do it without Mahrez. They couldn't do it without Vardy. But what's for damn sure is that they couldn't do it without N'Golo Kante. Yeah. And obviously, he leaves after that year. What he does at Chelsea, I won't speak too much on that because this is purely on Leicester. Yeah. But when you talk about impact for every team that he's ever played on, he is just the ultimate unspoken statesman, and his impact cannot be forgotten for any team he's played for.
The only reason I didn't put him on my shortlist was the one season. It was the one, and I was thinking, what did it do? But I guess Leicester are Leicester, so why should we? But it's just like Leicester eventually just fell away. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of similar to a Blackburn in a way as well, to be fair. But that one season, I was thinking, I was like, bro, because if you're talking about one season impact, you got his money as well. Yeah. You got to be arguably talking about the best signing.
One of them,
one of the best signings, pound for pound, ever. Do you know what I mean?
Chelsea probably got him for cheap too, bro. Getting him for 30 million. That's a bargain.
And when you look at him, I mentioned it before on another podcast though, like in terms of, he's like one of the first ever match winning ball recovery players I've ever seen. He wins you a game by his ball recovery, by the way he plays. You haven't seen a midfielder that in that mold that impacts the same way goal scorers do. No. He genuinely is like a goal scorer without scoring goals. It's incredible how he plays the game, bro. Honestly, like one of the most unique profiles
1000%, bro.
Okay, that's a good one. Very, very good one. So you got Tevez, you got
N'Golo, and I got Thierry Henry. Yeah. That's a decent three.
Okay, so I'm going to go over to Liverpool.
Oh, I was going to go there next.
I'm going to go Liverpool.
Don't take mine.
I'm going to go Liverpool.
Don't take mine.
And I've got to go with big Virgil van Dijk.
You took mine, man. You took mine.
Listen, this is a tough one. I wanted to come to more modern. You know what I mean? I want to go more modern because I think two of my picks have been a blast from the past. Virgil van Dijk. Have we ever, actually, I guess you said it with N'Golo Kante, but the fact that he signed in January, first of all, right, mid-season for such a high price, and I'm not gonna lie, at the time I was like, 75 mil for Van Dijk.
Couldn't believe it.
Like what? This is like football's gone mad. This is the indication that the game is gone.
People were comparing him to Smalling.
Yeah,
it's like, they got Smalling with a
ponytail. Exactly. This is the definition of the game's gone. But when I saw, listen, have we seen a January impact signing turn a team from you're good to oh no, they're big dogs now.
They're big dogs.
He transformed them almost as soon as he touched that Anfield blade of grass, they became a serious football club.
The first game he played was against Everton in the Cup. He scored the winner.
They became.
He transformed them from the start.
They literally instantly became a serious football club again. The juggernauts of the 80s and stuff. Like everyone had been waiting for Liverpool to become that. Jurgen Klopp has come. All right, he's finding his feet. He's getting to cup finals. He's lost a few. Yeah, they had the Gerrard era, but they didn't just quite get to the summit. They got to the Champions League, but they didn't quite get to the Premier League summit. Van Dijk walked in with this new word that everyone's using now. Not new, but aura. He walks in with the aura. You know what I mean? Looks around again, similar to Cantona, and just says, do you know what? This is going to be my playground. This is where I belong. I've done the Celtic thing. I've done the hard yards at Southampton. Why has it taken so long for a big club to come and get me? And that was, he answered it with flying colours. I mean, the way he went on, the defensive records Liverpool started becoming. Yes, Fabinho came later. Alisson came later. but it was when Van Dijk walked through that door. Mo Salah, you are a legend. Mane, you are a legend. And you guys could be here for other reasons. But in terms of just flipping the switch, it was Virgil van Dijk. And for them to go to the Champions League that final that year, it just wasn't your time. It just wasn't your time. But for the next year, to push City 97 points, I believe he won the Player of the Year. To then push, you went and won the Champions League with a man of the match performance.
He was Messi. He was within Messi of winning the Ballon d'Or.
And it was like 8 points. It was like 8 points different from winning the Ballon d'Or. In terms of highest peaks of a centre-backs we've seen in the Premier League, he's right up in there with the John Terrys, with the Jaap Stams, with the Rio Ferdinand. He's right there. Within 1 season or 2 seasons, 1.5 seasons, he became in all-time Premier League defender combos. Yeah. I ain't seen somebody do it that quickly.
Within 6 months, right?
I ain't seen that.
Within 6 months, I think he became like the unanimous best center back in the world. Within 6 months, everybody, I just gotta say, yeah, this is the best.
This is the best because what couldn't he do? Right foot, left foot. He could head. His aerial ability is unbelievable. His ball playing ability is first class.
And you know what it is with him?
He scores
too?
goals.
He could play, and not a lot of center backs can say this. He could play the aggressor, and he could play like the more relaxed ball player. He could do both those roles, and it didn't matter who you put next to him. You could put a more aggressive Lovren. You could put a more relaxed Joel Matip. You could put Joe Gomez next to him. You could put remember who was next to him? Clevan, bro. Ranier Clevan or whatever. Bro, you could put anybody next to him.
Anyone can play.
And he just looked assured, bro. Everything just calmed down.
The thing with Virgil as well, like as you mentioned, if you look at Virgil, he's one of them guys that I think you can play Virgil in any era, ever. And that's what you always say about all-time players. But you can say that, but there's still some all-time players where you think, okay, could they cross in the past or could they cross now? The game's changed, blah, blah, blah. But Virgil van Dijk, you pluck him in the 50s, the 60s, 70s, he's looking like Beckenbauer, bro. You put him in the 80s, he's looking like Baresi. You put him in the 90s, he's looking like Maldini. You put him in the 2000s, bro, you throw him anywhere, right?
Yeah, he can chat to the best.
He can chat to the best. I mean, like, even in the past era as well, where we talk about where there was so many good defenders, Terry's, Puyol, Cannavaro's, Rios and stuff, he would have been at a big club and in these conversations too. So he's a timeless player, unreal. And I just think, the impact that he made for Liverpool to go on, and yes, they didn't win as many trophies as they could have because of the Man City, but it was never down to Virgil van Dijk. I mean, I think he's, in terms of impact,
I think impact, like he embodies impact, man. Because I think another thing to remember too is, again, the team that Klopp was building at Liverpool, from the jump, you could tell
they needed
you could tell what his team was like built on. Aggression, pace, counter-attacking, explosive attackers, goals. But the defensive side of the game was always hurting. In fact, you look at that 17-18 season, which he came in January. But the first half of the season, the team was built around that four. Coutinho, Mane, Salah, Firmino. They were amazing. But defensively, everyone knew you could get at them. And it was almost addition by subtraction. You could say that. Some people would say that Coutinho had to be sold for Alisson and Fabinho to come in later. And that's a fair way of looking at it too. But also, the fact that Coutinho came in January, Van Dijk came in that same summer, maybe a week later, and Liverpool, you could also say too, like Salah kind of took off from that point on, and Van Dijk just immediately made Liverpool that much more fearsome. And of course, like I said, you had to bring in an Alisson to replace Karius. Fabinho had to come into the team, but the catalyst of everything, the guy that for me made Liverpool, in my eyes, they're back. Oh, they're a team that everyone knew after 17-18. The next year they were going to be challenging City, even though they came fourth. Everybody knew Liverpool. They're here now.
The thing is, like, people might be like, oh, how can you not say Mo Salah for my pick in that, because he won the Player of the Year in his first season and stuff. But it's exactly what you just said there. Even with Mo Salah, I was looking at Liverpool like, oh yeah, this guy's amazing. He's doing his thing, but
they still got that soft underbelly.
They're not going to be that. Look, we saw it with Suarez. I know they almost won the league, but it's like we've seen carry jobs at many clubs. We've seen carry jobs in Steven Gerrard, you know what I mean? We've done it, but you guys ain't really serious, you know what I mean? We've seen it. But it's when Van Dijk came in, it was like, oh, now we look at a serious football club. So that's why I go Virgil van Dijk for that one.
I'm pissed, man. You took my pick.
Come on, man.
That was literally my next pick.
Come on, man.
All right, let me see if I can take one of yours then. I hope you got this on your list. I would think you would. If he didn't make your list, he just narrowly missed out.
Ooh.
Didier.
he was on there.
Yeah,
He was on there, but there was a few on there. I'm not gonna lie. There was a few.
I know
from
there's a
Chelsea.
few at Chelsea that they've had some big dogs, but
Okay.
Drogba, man, everyone knows how much I love Drogba. Man. In terms of the impact that he had at Chelsea, and in terms of like how we saw center forwards in the Premier League, boy. A guy that really came kind of like in the middle of his 20s, right?
Yes.
We call Drogba a late bloomer, and for good reason. But from the minute he
turned pro at
entered,
21. He turned pro at 21.
he came to Chelsea at what, 25?
5, I think. Yeah.
Crazy. But this was the guy that for me was like, do we want to call him the final piece of Mourinho's jigsaw? Like, he had a great team. If he wasn't the final one, he was like one of the last pieces you kind of needed to turn Chelsea from like, okay, a very, very good team that could challenge to like, okay, I have my guy up
But
front.
he signed in their first summer though.
What was it? 04, 05?
5, yeah.
Yeah, but for me, that's the Mourinho team.
Yeah, the
04,
first
05. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So the reason I say that, right? Like, you had a great team. The defense was brilliant. You had the midfield. You had guys in there like Makalele. Lampard was already there too, goal scoring threat. But every Mourinho team, no matter whether it's at Madrid, at Inter, at United, at Chelsea, he needs his gunman striker. And Drogba, in my eyes, just encapsulates what it means to be a Mourinho striker, but also a Chelsea center forward.
Yes.
And I think, too, you look at what's come after him. Obviously, Diego Costa did a nice little thing over there. But Chelsea have never truly replaced Didier Drogba.
Never,
and they've been looking. That number 9 curse. And how ironic is it that he never actually even wore the number 9? Maybe that's why he did so well. But they've been looking to replace Drogba ever since he left, both the first time and the second time. And they've never really gotten both his impact on the pitch, but also what he represented as Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah.
The goals that he scored, the big games, the finals that have his fingerprints all over them, whether it's creating space for guys like Lampard to thrive in, being the ultimate like wall up front that everybody could kind of push the team forward because of him. The Champions
He
League,
changed the game for strikers in the Premier League.
100%. Well, that was the next point, right? But the Champions League, 2012, that team had no right doing what they did. And I get it. John Terry, everybody had to play their part.
Yeah.
But Drogba was the guy consistently. When Chelsea needed an answer, Didier Drogba was that answer. And of course, too, like you're saying, what he meant for strikers in the Premier League, you were going from an era where like everybody played 2 up front, big and little, or like fast and strong. But Drogba introduced this idea that you could have one guy to do every role by himself. He was fast. He could run. He could stretch defenses out. He could run channels. He was a physical beast. He could hold up the ball in the air, was fearsome. He was just everything. And he allowed teams to now start packing the midfield. You could play 3 midfielders instead of 2 because you don't need 2 guys up front. You have Didier Drogba to do everything for them. And then also when you talk again about like cultural impact as well too. Yeah. If Chelsea aren't the most followed team in Africa, they're number 2 just because of United. And I think a huge they might even be number 1, right? You look at the way guys like Victor Osimhen, who's potentially on the cusp of joining Chelsea. His idol is Didier Drogba. I think in general, most African footballers look at Didier Drogba
Drogba's the king
he's the king of Africa, right? And I just think like the impact. Look, you look at all the African players Chelsea have had post Drogba. I think his importance to that club has a huge bearing on that.
Yeah, in terms of the landscape of I've been to Nigeria many times and stuff that Drogba, especially when he was in his day, Drogba shirts were everywhere, bro. Drogba shirts were everywhere. The impact that he made in Africa was incredible. He is a proper like flag bearer. He is a proper flag bearer of African football in a way. And so Chelsea, the way he flipped it, because I don't get it twisted. I let them Chelsea fans in Africa were Arsenal fans, you know. Don't let them fool you, you know what I mean? Until Drogba came,
I'll tell you this, Drogba was an Arsenal fan. Drogba was an Arsenal fan growing up.
Everyone looked at Henry, and then it's like Henry and Drogba. You know what I mean? That's literally how it is. So Drogba's a good one, especially for the way he changed. I think the way he changed strikers in the Premier League, I think that's his biggest thing. The way he changed it. Bro, I grew up 2 man up top. 2 man up top. There was nobody running around with 1 up top. It just literally wasn't happening. It was so rare. Okay, you might have Scholes behind Ruud van Nistelrooy, but it was still essentially 2 up top. But then Drogba came along, and all of a sudden, everyone needed us. Number 6, anchor. Then you needed a big man, and then you needed a wide forward.
He changed the blueprint.
And the wide forwards were inverting as well. And bro, it was just the way, obviously, you can attribute that to Jose as well.
Yeah.
But he
but
couldn't have
Drogba
done it
was his
without
guy.
Didier.
That's what I'm saying.
Couldn't have done
yeah.
it. And don't forget, the season before they had Hasselbank.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that Hasselbank had to get moved out. Hasselbank scores goals for Chelsea.
Yeah.
He had to get moved out. They kept Idoko Johnson. And they told Idoko Johnson, listen, like, you're not going to be playing up front like that no more. He is going to play at times. But now your role is actually going to be in the center of midfield. You're going to be coming on for Frank Lampard. Or it's going to be you, Lampard, and Makaleli. So he had to move into a center midfield role. Back then, it was literally Hasselbank and Johnson. Yo, that is a real serious front two. And then they had to change up all because of this guy, Drogba, who first 2 seasons, I was there. First 2 seasons, people were doubting him. Doesn't score goals, blah, blah, blah. He was kind of like, so I think he scored 15 in each of his first 2 seasons, something. It was a bit booky, do you know what I mean? And then, but once it clicked, and he still had great moments, by the way.
Of course.
The Bayern Munich header, the goals against, I think the goal against Barcelona, bro, he was proper.
And in 2012, man, you can never forget. I mean, that's the greatest night in Chelsea Football Club's history. And he was the guy. That final,
he was anointed,
bro.
That was God gave him that. God gave him that.
100%.
Like, gave it to him.
People talk about the penalty, right? But that header, I don't think people actually deep how crazy that. I think we've talked about this. To leap like that, and it's the insane. Craziest header, man.
It's insane. All right, that was a good one.
Yeah,
that was good. Drogba was on my list, but I'm gonna give an obscure one soon.
Okay.
My last one's gonna be a one that you don't expect.
Okay. So you're at what, number 4 now?
This is my number 4, and I'm gonna go with Dennis Bergkamp. This is my number 4, Dennis Bergkamp. I actually think if you're talking about the impact of signing, I think Bergkamp is above Henry.
Really?
I think Bergkamp is above Henry. Yeah,
Go ahead. Talk to your...
I think if you think about it, right? Arsenal before Dennis Bergkamp, before Arsene Wenger, were 1-0 to the Arsenal. Boring, George Graham, Tony Adams, Steve Bold, Keown, Dixon, Winterburn, whoever. They're going to bag. Ian Wright might get you the goal. Paul Merson might get you a little something. And they're going to win 1-0 to the Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? That's what it was. Boring Arsenal. And then Dennis Bergkamp walks in after being called a flop, by the way, at Inter. And he is the embodiment of the new style that we see Arsenal play. See all the fans now. You see Arsenal fans, they all see the game one way. They love the passing football. That's attribute from Wenger. But Wenger had to get a lieutenant to go on the pitch and show him how it's done. And that was Dennis Bergkamp, bro. The level of technical ability. You're arguably talking about the most technical player we've ever seen in the Premier League in terms of pure technical ability. It's arguable.
He's up there.
His touch, perfection. He ushered in how Wenger wanted to play. And of course, he came from Ajax. So he knows that way. He knows how to play this beautiful football coming from Johan Cruyff and total football, the Dutch way. He came and brought that to Arsenal with Arsene Wenger. And as I said, the impact that he made in terms of how we Arsenal fans see the game and how we see Arsenal football. Come on, we don't see Arsenal. Maybe Arteta's trying to do his little thing now, but we don't see Arsenal as this team who are 1-0 solid. No, when we started seeing Arsenal as beautiful, passed the ball. And you always listen to how Manchester United players talk about that 98 team. They had the strength, they had the power, but they also had the technical brilliance of a Dennis Bergkamp. He was the one for me that really ushered in that beautiful, that Wenger ball for Henry's to go and succeed, for Vieira's, for these guys. Don't forget, they won the title, the first title that they won in Wenger's second season. Dennis Bergkamp was the top goal scorer that season. He was brilliant. Listen to Ian Wright speak about him. But you can think about all of Ian Wright's goals. He knows he's not levels with Bergkamp. And he'll tell you that. I've met Ian Wright. I've spoken to Ian Wright. I saw him at a bar after I played football one time. And I said to him, bro, how do you feel that you are Arsenal? You were Arsenal's all-time top goal scorer before Henry. Henry has a statue and Bergkamp has a statue. Why don't you have one? He said, bro, I can't get into Bergkamp's party, bro. If Bergkamp had a party, I'm not invited. There's levels. He said there's levels. He said Henry obviously took it to another. He was me with about on another level. But Bergkamp, I cannot get into his party. And there we go. That's why he has a statue at the Emirates. Bergkamp is what modern Arsenal are. I think how we see Arsenal, Dennis Bergkamp.
I feel like he's become
And Wenger.
I feel like he's become like the Premier League's forgotten like superstar as well too, right?
Can I
Like,
say something? Could we
yeah.
just stare?
Yeah.
The three most disrespected legends: Dennis Bergkamp, Ryan Giggs, and Didier Drogba. Them three players get spoken about as if they were like random bums on the streets
GA
because
types,
of.
right? Yeah.
There we go. They're bro, different. That's why Dennis Bergkamp is my one.
That's a good pick.
Yeah,
That's a good pick. So I gotta go number 5.
number
I got
5.
a few guys.
I want to see where you go with this one. I want to see where
I
you
think there's
go.
only one place I can go.
Because so far, okay. Okay.
I left
go
out
on.
United so far.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
Yeah, I haven't gave my United pick.
All
You
right.
took mine.
Yeah,
King
I
Eric.
took yours,
You
mate.
took Eric
I
and you
took
took
yours.
Van Dijk from me. But yeah, look, I think Eric
But you
Cantona
took
is
Tevez
obvious.
from me, mate. You
Yeah,
took
no,
Tevez.
Eric Cantona is a massive one, no doubt about it. And I can't argue that there's one for me that's more impactful for Man United. But I think a close second has to be Roy Keane. Roy Keane
my
to
list.
Man
He's
United
on my
from
list.
Nottingham Forest, right? Yeah, for
I
me,
thought because you
if
might take
I took
Cantona.
Cantona, you would have taken Roy
Yeah.
Keane. So I completely hear it. Bro, we've never replaced him. He left 20 years ago. We still haven't replaced him. And I don't think we ever will. They don't make guys like Roy Keane anymore, man. In terms of like their leadership, in terms of their impact. And again, you talk about most disrespected players in Premier League history.
Sorry.
Hey, if he didn't make the
Put
top
him in the
3,
top
he's
5.
he's 4 right there,
Yeah.
bro. This idea now that Roy Keane was nothing more than just like a shin
Hatchet
kicker, a hatchet man, passion merchant. He was Man United, man. In terms of their midfield, he was the guy making everything tick in there, man. You talk about the manager on the pitch. I kind of disagree with you in terms of that Eric Cantona one. I think like Eric Cantona is like the magician in terms of like he just does what he wants. And
Keane
one
is
thing
that.
I didn't ever spoke about Eric Cantona. Sorry to just go briefly back to him. He was one of like maybe 3 players in Fergie's entire tenure where Fergie said,
Go and do your thing.
everyone else follow the rules
yeah.
one by one, but you,
thing.
Cristiano, and I think there was one more that he always brought up. I'm gonna let you be great. You do you. But Roy Keane, in terms of being the manager,
That is
the
definition.
senior statesman on the pitch. Nobody dares step out of line
That's why
when
he
Roy
can't
Keane
get on
does.
with Fergie.
100%.
They're the same guy.
But bro, you talk about the impact, man. What he meant for captains in the Premier League, what he meant for Man United in the biggest of games. For me, he's the greatest Premier League captain
Ever.
You got your John Terry, your Gerrards, respect. Roy Keane is the statesman and all of that. And then you can't get away from the Juventus semifinal. I know it's a Premier League thing, but like the way he knew he wasn't going to play in that final, and the way he still put his body on the line and carried that team to a final he knew he wouldn't get to play in. That sums up Roy Keane for me, man.
No, 2 of the seasons where he had a bit of injuries, we didn't win the league. You know what I mean? 2 of the seasons, but when they won the league at Old Trafford on the pitch, that season he was struggling with injury, he was carrying injury, and the same thing with I think it was '98 as well. So I mean, Keane, it's just more than that. As you mentioned, the way he was basically Fergie. He was Fergie.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
You haven't seen I guess you can say John Terry as well, but you haven't seen a player that just Tony Adams too. To be fair, let me not single these guys out, but they run the club, they run the dressing room. What they say goes. Simple as that. That was Roy Keane. The fear he had, and I mean the way he even left the football club is in typical Roy Keane fashion.
Loud.
He's trying to uphold the standards.
Yeah.
Maybe the club wasn't at that level right there, and he became, in a way, a bit toxic, and he got up out of there. I mean, that's how he's always been. You look at what happened with Ireland. He's trying to uphold the standards. He doesn't think it's matching standards. It gets a bit toxic. Yeah. It's just the way Roy Keane was a fearless winner. Bro, some people, they always say, it's better to be respected than feared. Yeah. I don't think Roy Keane cared about that, bro. He wanted to be feared. Bro.
Roy Keane said, "I want both."
Yeah, he wanted to be feared. That's the way he ran the club, and bro, in a way, that's the way he ran the Premier League. Roy Keane ran the Premier League at a point, in a way. You know what I mean? So
I just think too. You talk about like, there's some players, bro, that are just winners, and you can't explain how they're winners. Like some players, you can look at their goals, you look at their skills, you look at how they defend. But some people just have intangible winning. And I'm going to bring up a guy that, like, now he's a laughing stock in the Premier League. He is and it's sad that it's gotten this way. But Casemiro is one of those guys as well, too, that even at Real Madrid, in his first season at United, he has these winning intangibles that, like, he's not the easiest on the eye. He's not the best passer, but, like, you have a guy like, when he's at his peak, right? When you have Casemiro on your team wins stuff because he just knows how to get it done. He just makes the right plays consistently. He's always in the right place. He's always in the right place to make it. Like these guys are just intangible winners. And Roy Keane is for me the embodiment of that. if Roy Keane is playing for your team wins
Yeah.
because he will not leave the pitch without giving everything it takes to win.
Will to win. That's what you need in your captain. All right, that was a good one. But obviously, as I said, I had to just go Kante because that was the Kante yours as well.
Honestly, I was trying to play it nice. I was an obscure one. I played it wrong.
I played it obscure at the end. At the end.
That's good.
Now, okay, cool. So obviously, I've used Blackburn. It's not one using a Blackburn player.
Damn.
Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, and that's my 4. Yes. So my last one. This is gonna be an obscure one, right? I'm gonna go Chelsea as well, right? I'm gonna go Chelsea, but you know what I'm gonna go with, and it's gonna be completely different reasons. It's gonna actually be for the impact on what he did to another club. I'm gonna go Ashley Cole.
I thought about this one.
Ashley Cole.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you why this is my final one. People might be thinking, oh, what, Lampard? How can you not leave?
I seriously thought about this.
Lampard, check. All of them guys. Zola, you could put all of them guys. But I'm going to Ashley Cole for, in a way, the treason that he caused. It's treason.
He did the unthinkable. Yeah.
It's treason. Like, listen, we've seen players move from clubs to club. I know Chelsea and Arsenal have sold each other players many times, right? And it's gone on to do that. But that was the first proper tapping up scandal. Chelsea and Arsenal at that point, they didn't vibe, bro. They did not mess with each other. Mourinho did not mess with Wenger. He actually made it his mission to be friends with Fergie. Hey, let's gang up on this you over there. Just when Fergie and Wenger was squashing the beef, he's like, yeah, no, but he's like that guy. Like, he was talking about you. He was talking. I heard
it's true. He came in. Mr. Ferguson. Yeah. But then Wenger,
Wenger, bro, he declared war on Arsenal almost instantly, right? So there was bad blood between the two clubs. This brother Mourinho and Ashley Cole decided in the thick of things, let's go meet each other at Starbucks, or let's go meet each other at Costa Coffee and have a chat about you coming to the club. Do you know how insane that is? Yeah. Like, I know now it seems like managers and stuff, players to speak all the time in ways they do, but trust me, you will not, and I don't think you will ever see a manager and a player meeting in a coffee shop to discuss a transfer when that player especially plays for, at that time, your London fierce rivals. Don't forget, North London has been red at that point for a long, long time. Mourinho comes in, Chelsea start making it blue, start turning. The one moment you can pretty much say was the nail in this discussion about, is North London red or is it blue? Was Ashley Cole saying, hey, I'm going to Chelsea. Yeah. Ashley Cole, Hale End boy, by the way, goes over to Chelsea, their rivals. And now, Man United, coincidentally, that's when we took off. Doesn't matter about that. That was the end of Arsenal at that point as a serious club.
Oh, definitely.
It was the end. And that was when Chelsea, obviously, you go on to see what Chelsea won. The FA Cups, the Premier League, the Champions League, whatever that Ashley Cole ended up winning at Chelsea. It just shows it. It was a period of dominance where maybe now you can say London is whatever. You can have your discussion. But London was blue for over 10 years. Maybe even 15 years. Yeah. And the nail in the coffin that he caused to Arsenal, the embarrassment that he caused, he was the first one to start this exodus where it felt like every Arsenal captain leaves. That obviously Vieira and Henry left, but they went abroad. Yeah. Fabregas ended up somehow coming back to Chelsea. I know he wanted to go there. But you're looking at Van Persie getting up and leaving. Adebayor, Gael Clichy, Sanya, all of these guys, Nasri, all of these guys just getting up and leaving to clubs that are trying to win titles, leaving Arsenal. They were going to
direct competitors.
It all started from that, let's call it a spade, snake move from Ashley Cole. They started calling him Cashley. Yeah. Bro, I think Arsenal fans, now that they've matured, understand how Arsenal not going to pay Ashley Cole. They should have paid him, but we know the post-Highbury, the building of Emirates, everything that it caused. But I think the impact it made to Arsenal and the significant kind of status boost it gave Chelsea in London was massive. So I'm going to go Ashley Cole. In terms of impact of signing, I ain't seen many signings basically say, hey, that's the death of a football club.
Nah, 100%.
At that point, that's the death of a football club. And hey, Arsenal still ain't won the title.
I think it's the death of their relevance at that point, right? Yeah. Like, they were like at that point, even when Chelsea were winning the league, United were kind of like in their mini rebuild, if you want to call it that. It was Chelsea and Arsenal that were going for the league for the most part. But yeah, we spoke about this when we did our Ashley Cole episode, right? Like Vieira, he left, but he went to Italy.
Yeah.
Bergkamp, he retired.
Yeah.
Like,
Henry.
yeah. Perez, he went abroad. Henry, he went to Barca. Exactly. Like Henry going to Barca.
It's nothing.
It's like,
big
yo,
deal.
you know
Thank
what?
you for
Like,
your services.
like it hurts, but you're going to Barca. We get it. Ashley Cole going next door
In his prime.
in his peak years to the team that's winning the league over your heads. That basically, like you said, it opened the door. You had Sanya,
5 million
Adebayor,
plus Gallas.
Clichy, bro.
5 million plus.
And it was
William
like, no
Gallas.
disrespect to Gallas, right? Because Gallas is, for me now, underrated. But
Yeah.
like, he was a good servant for Chelsea. But that was maybe the one position you could look at Chelsea. It's like, oh, they could do with a better left back.
because they had.
And they went and signed the best one in the world.
Yeah. They had
long
Wayne
day.
Bridge,
Yeah.
who was good up until when they needed to be serious.
Yeah, exactly. Good servant. Gallas, good servant.
I said Dalhono, you were decent,
Bolaros,
but then they had guys that would just plug and play. Gallas, as you mentioned, plug and play. But Ashley Cole was like, oh,
Yeah, it's the best one in the world. Yeah.
best in the world. Thank you. You're gonna give us your final last 7 years in your prime. Unbelievable, man. The significance of what that did to Arsenal was massive.
Nuts.
So that's my one. That's not obscure one. You know?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's good. I considered it, but Didier, I had to go
That's
with him. Anyways, guys, this is going to do it. Let us know in the comments section below who are the most influential Premier League signings that we didn't name that we definitely should have said in your opinion. As always, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. The sport's been crazy recently. Shout out as well to BR Football for powering the podcast. As always, go check out all of their pages, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. And
whose were better?
I can't lie. With that Eric one, you might have taken it from me. With that being said, it's been my boy CultureCams, myself Lyés, and we'll see you next time. Peace.